I met Isla on the first day of my senior year. She sat 2 seats over in homeroom, small frame, long black hair, quiet voice. New transfer, they said. Came from a charter school that closed down overnight, supposedly due to funding issues. But the way she said it when I asked sounded more like an excuse than a reason. They didn't like that I kept seeing things. She smiled after that. I didn't. She didn't talk much to anyone except me. It started with shared glances during history class, trading notes in English. Then lunch together. Then long, wandering walks home through the quiet streets of Ashbury. She never had a phone, never invited me inside her house, but she knew every shortcut through town like she'd lived here forever. Which was strange, because I'd lived in Ashbury my entire life and I'd never seen her before. The first time she showed me the picture, I didn't understand. We were sitting by the riverbank, our feet dangling just above the water. It was cold even in September. She pulled the photo from her backpack. A Polaroid, old and faded, the edges curled like it had been in her pocket for years. "This is my family," she said. I took the photo. There were 5 people in it. For adults, 2 women, 2 men, all dressed in what looked like Sunday clothes. They stood on the porch of a house I didn't recognize. Behind them, a cloudy sky, a pale lawn, a wooden swing creaking to one side, caught mid-motion. But something was wrong. "Where are you?" I asked. She looked at me confused, then leaned in. "I'm right there." She pointed to the porch, to an empty space beside the older woman. That's where I was standing. I stared again. Still nothing. Just a space. An obvious absence, like a puzzle piece removed. "Your family looks somber." "They're dead," she said softly. "Oh, I'm sorry. When did they?" "That's the thing," she said. I showed them this photo a week before they died. Something was wrong with her house. Not in the horror movie sense, no blood on the walls, no flickering lights. It was just wrong. The lawn never changed. The curtains never moved. The lights never turned on at night. It looked like a display home. I passed it every day. Always pristine. Always empty. But every morning, Isla would appear on the corner, same time, same clothes, same distant stare. "Why don't you ever go inside?" I asked once. "Because if I do, she'll see me." "Who?" She didn't answer. One night, I walked past her house after midnight. Just to see. The porch light was on. The front door was open, and someone was sitting in the swing, gently rocking, creaking in rhythm. It wasn't Isla. It was a woman in a long black dress, her face pale and blank. Her hands rested in her lap. Her head never moved, but I swear she was looking at me. I didn't sleep that night. Isla started changing in October. She was quieter, more distracted. Her hair began falling out in small clumps. Her fingernails turned faintly blue. When I asked if she was okay, she just smiled. "Do you remember the photo?" "Of course." "Look at it again." She handed it to me, the same Polaroid. But this time, the porch was empty. All 5 people were gone. Only the swing remained, creaking in place. I went to the school office. Tried to ask about her records. They looked at me like I was crazy. "Isla James? We don't have a student by that name." "What?" "She's been here for over a month." "You must be confused. We had a transfer, but she withdrew. September 17th. "That's impossible." She said she was going back to her old school. The one that burned down. Burned down? That was the first I'd heard of it. I dug through old news reports, school board bulletins. Found it. Ash Grove Academy fire destroys North Wing, 2 dead. Suspected arson. Only 1 survivor. Name withheld due to age. The date? Exactly 1 year before Isla showed me the Polaroid. That night, I dreamed of the porch. I stood in the empty yard, the grass now long and dead. The swing moved, and standing behind it, not sitting, was Isla. But something was different. Her eyes were black. Her mouth was stitched. She raised her hand and pointed at me. I woke up with dirt under my nails. And the Polaroid, the one I had given back to her weeks ago, was on my desk. This time, I was in the photo. Standing alone. Everyone else was gone. And written on the back. Who's missing now? The house Isla never entered starts showing up in strange places. One by one, her classmates begin to vanish, and the Polaroid changes every time. The Polaroid wouldn't burn. I tried. Not out of fear, but desperation. After waking up to find my image in it, alone with everyone else vanished, I panicked. I grabbed it, lit a match, and watched. The edges curled. Smoke coiled. But the center stayed pristine. Unblemished. As if the image was printed not on paper, but on something deeper. And the swing in the photo? It was moving again. I hadn't seen Isla in days. She stopped showing up at the bus stop. Her house looked the same, untouched. But there was something different in the air around it now. Like the quiet was heavier. That morning, the fog hadn't lifted. The entire street felt submerged in still water. As I walked past, I saw it again. The front door open, the swing creaking, and for the first time, music was coming from inside. A slow, off-tune lullaby played on what sounded like a warped cassette. It wasn't any song I recognized, but I swear it followed me home. In school, no one remembered her. I walked into homeroom. Her desk sat empty. "Where's Isla?" I asked. Silence. "Who?" someone said. Our teacher, Ms. Delaney, frowned. "We haven't had a student named Isla this year." "This year?" "She's been here for weeks." I checked my texts, notes, yearbook listings. Nothing. Even my camera roll we'd taken a selfie together at the riverbank was blank where she should have been. Just me smiling into an empty frame. That's when the disappearances began. First, it was Sarah Tomlin, gone after 4th period. No one could remember her being there at all except me. Then Darren Reed. Then Lizzie Halverson. Each time, I found a new Polaroid on my desk. Each one darker. Each one missing another person. Each one with the swing still moving in the background. I broke into Isla's house. I had to. Nothing made sense and no one believed me. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air changed. Warmer. Wetter. The walls were pulsing faintly as if breathing through the wallpaper. The light bulbs flickered and hummed a low, constant tone, almost a voice. And that smell, like damp soil and burnt sugar. I found the living room. At least, I think that's what it had been. The furniture was melted as if softened by heat. On the far wall hung dozens of Polaroids strung up on black thread like a spider's web. They were all the same porch. All the same swing. Different people, adults, teens, children, slowly vanishing photo by photo. Some had notes scrawled on the back. Almost gone. Swing always starts with them. She edits with her eyes closed. Then I saw one with my name. And a date, November 11th. It was 3 days away. I ran. But something followed me out. It didn't move fast, didn't even move toward me. But I felt it in my blood, a cold rewiring. Like someone pressing undo on my memory in slow motion. I passed people on the street. They didn't see me. I waved at my mom through the kitchen window. She didn't react. I wasn't invisible. I was being forgotten. That night, I got a phone call. Not a number. Just unknown. I answered. "You saw the wall, didn't you?" It was Isla. Her voice was faint. Choppy. As if spliced together from recordings. They were never meant to see the swing. "What is it?" "Not what." "Who?" A pause. "You can still unedit yourself. But you have to find your original." Before she cuts the thread. "Isla, where are you?" "I'm still here. Just not in one piece." Click. I went to the school the next morning. Empty desks. Empty halls. Only a few kids left. No teachers. And on every wall, every bulletin board tacked up with pins or thread or Polaroids. Some new. Some old. All of them featured that swing. All of them had one less person than before. One showed me standing behind Ms. Delaney's desk. Alone. Smiling. The caption on the back? "Substitute. For now." I walked past the playground behind the school. It was empty, but the swing set for seats, rusted and wet, was moving. Only one swing moved. It tapped against the post, back and forth. I pulled out my phone, recorded it, watched live as the video file saved, played, and then showed 5 swings. Then 6. Then me, sitting there, swinging slowly, smiling. But I hadn't moved. I hadn't touched it. And on my arm, the one I never lifted, I now saw a faint black thread. The Polaroids begin changing while he watches. The swing set appears in his backyard. And Isla's voice returns, this time not through the phone. I didn't go to school the next day. There was no point. The last Polaroid I found had shown the entire class vanished. Only my seat remained. Empty. But the swing in the background, it was full. For figures now sat on it. Blurry. But I knew them by shape. Isla, Sarah, Darren, Lizzie. And one more that hadn't been there before. Someone whose face was made of stitched lines and inverted shadows. Not pixelation. Not smudging. Censorship. Intentional. Like it wasn't meant to be seen. The swing set was in my backyard now. Not one like it. The same one. Same rust. Same chipped blue paint. Same darkened bolts and chain markings. I know because the third swing had Isla's initials carved into the metal seat, IJ, surrounded by a cracked heart. I called my mom. She walked right past it. Didn't notice a thing. When I asked her to look directly at it, she blinked and changed the subject. I checked my phone. The video was gone. I tried looking up Isla James again. School records, blank. Public directories, nothing. Missing persons, no match. Newspapers? One result, Ash Grove Academy fire had changed. No mention of survivors now. Just cause, undetermined. All inside perished. Remains never recovered. I checked the Polaroid again. Now Isla was sitting on the swing. Alone. Her head tilted downward. And in the corner? A mirror had appeared, leaning against the porch where the fifth figure had been. In the reflection, me. The thread was now around my wrist. Thin, black, tight like fishing line. When I touched it, my vision stuttered like someone pressing rewind. For a second, I was 12 again, standing in the hallway of my old home. My dad's voice shouted from the other room. I blinked, back in the present. The thread isn't just memory. It's timeline. That night, the Polaroid changed again. I didn't find it. It was under my skin. A raised shape beneath my forearm, square, sharp-edged. When I scratched it, paper poked through. I pulled. It slid out cleanly. No blood. No pain. Just heat. And now the swing set was on fire. No one sat on it anymore. But there were 6 shadows beneath it. And one of them had my face. I went back to Isla's house. It wasn't just decayed anymore. It was mutating. The windows pulsed like lungs. The door wasn't wood, it was stitched canvas. Breathing. Waiting. Inside, the wall of Polaroids had grown. Now they moved. A loop, each photo flickering through frames. People appearing, vanishing, aging, vanishing again. And the swing? It remained constant. Always present. Always moving. I touched one of the photos. It flashed white. Suddenly, I stood on the porch. The same porch. Windless. Timeless. No sky. No sound. No breath. And Isla was beside me, wearing her school uniform. Hair longer than I remembered. Skin, paper white. You're inside the original now, she said. What is this place? This is where we get written. By who? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the swing. A new figure sat there. It looked just like me, but older. Emaciated. Smiling. That's the draft they want to keep. Then who am I? She looked down. You're the one they're trying to delete. The sky above the porch began to tear open, like a photograph being slowly ripped from behind. And I saw a room. My room. Real time. A Polaroid camera hovering midair. Snapping. Each flash made me flicker. Erase. Reappear. Then Isla whispered. If they finish the swing, they finish you. I turned. Behind the porch now stood 7 swings. And someone was building the 8th. The photo wall begins bleeding. The swings stop moving. And Isla reveals the truth. She was never in the original photo because she was never supposed to exist. The porch had no end. Isla and I walked for what felt like miles, the wooden planks beneath us creaking the same way every 5th step. No matter how far we moved, the swing set stayed exactly where it was, visible, central, pulsing faintly with that impossible motion. And the sky, torn like canvas, still showed glimpses of my bedroom, like we were under a sheet of film being projected from the real world above. You said I'm being erased, I finally said. Why? Isla stopped walking. Because you touched the photo. The rules were simple, she explained. 1. You can only be in the photo once. 2. If you appear more than once, the version chosen by the swing survives. 3. The rest are threaded out. What does that mean? You don't die. You're redacted. Like removed. Like undone. And then she turned to me and said something that didn't make sense, not at first. I was never in the original. That's why I'm still here, she explained. Her family had taken that photo the day before the Ash Grove fire. She stood right there on the porch beside them. But when the film developed, she wasn't in it. They said the film glitched, that I moved too fast, that I stood behind someone. But she hadn't. She had stood perfectly still. That's when she noticed me. Who's she? The one who edits. We returned to the wall of Polaroids. They were breathing now in unison, like lungs or tide. The thread binding them vibrated faintly, almost musical. And beneath the wall, where before there had been nothing but carpet, a hatch had formed. Metal. Sealed. Scratched with 3 words. Stay in frame. The hatch opened on its own. Inside, a narrow staircase. Descending into a blackness that felt still. No air. No temperature. Just static. And we went down. Deeper. The further we moved, the more we began to forget. I couldn't remember my mom's face. I couldn't remember my real name. Only the swing. Only Isla. Only the photo. She's down here, Isla whispered. She waits until your thread thins. Then she writes over it. I touched the wall as we walked. It wasn't stone. It was skin. photos embedded in it like scales. Some were blinking. At the bottom was the negative room. That's what Isla called it. Everything was color inverted, shadows turned to blinding white, skin to grayscale. There was no light source, but everything glowed wrong. And standing in the center of the room, a figure, tall, stitched, featureless. Her face was a sheet of Polaroid paper. Every few seconds, it printed an image from the mouth-like slit where her chin should have been. Each photo dropped to the floor. Each photo was a rewrite. I saw one flutter down. My house. Only I wasn't in it. She's replacing you, Isla said. With what? With the version that never questioned the photo. Then what happens to me? Isla didn't answer. She held up a new Polaroid. It showed the swing set, but no one was on it anymore. Instead, the camera was sitting on the swing, pointed at the viewer. As if we had become the subject, the editor turned to us. We didn't move, but our skin started to stretch, pulled subtly toward her, as if some invisible hook had latched onto the threads within us. She lifted a hand. We were being erased. Not all at once, layer by layer. I could feel it. First, my reflection disappeared. Then my shadow. Then the color of my blood. I scratched my arm. The wound oozed white, not red. Isla screamed, but not in fear, in fury. She ran toward the editor, tried to rip the photo skin from her body. But when she touched her, she vanished into a burst of ash and thread. Not gone, dispersed, like ink in water. And in her place dropped a final photo. Me, sitting on the swing. Alone, smiling, with no eyes. I backed away. The editor tilted her head as if amused. She printed one last photo and placed it on the wall. I couldn't see it until I turned around. It was already in my hand. The porch, the swing, a mirror, and written on the back. The original is bleeding. My palm was now leaking red-black ink. And my voice, when I tried to scream, sounded like camera shutter clicks. Time fractures. Threads unravel. And the protagonist discovers that Isla's birth and his own may have been edits, not events. I don't remember walking home. I remember arriving. But it wasn't my house anymore. At least, not fully. The porch looked right. The windows. The faded welcome mat. But on the front door was a strip of Polaroid paper, taped in an X. I peeled one end up. It hissed. The sound of film developing. Beneath it, written in tiny, black thread. Return to the frame. Inside, the house was frozen. Literally. Frost crept along the floors like smoke. The walls bled condensation. All the family photos were gone, replaced with blank white rectangles, perfectly aligned. The mirror in the hallway had cracked into that same spiral pattern. And on the dining table was a photo album I didn't recognize. It looked old. Victorian. Wrapped in velvet. Bound with wire. Title etched in silver. Drafts. I opened it. Page 1, a photo dated 1847. A woman giving birth. Black and white. Too clear to be real. But the eyes. Her face was mine. Next page, 1873. A different woman. Same face. Next, 1901. Home birth in a cabin. Then 1928. Then 1950. Then 1976. Always a different decade. Always me being born. Before I was ever alive. Before my parents were even born. I flipped to the final page. It was blank. But as I stared, ink bled through from beneath the page. A photo developed in real time. It showed a hospital room. Now. Present day. And there I was on a table, screaming, bloodied, newborn. Standing beside the doctor? The editor. Holding a pair of scissors. Cutting a black thread from my ankle. The room began to warp. Everything flickered like a TV stuck between channels. Reality twisted. Time shook loose. I ran to the bathroom mirror. I was still me. But wrong. My eyes mismatched. My teeth shifting. And my shadow wasn't moving with me. It stayed perfectly still. Then it raised a hand. Waved. And held up a photo. The swing was back. In the basement. I know I never had a swing in the basement. But when I opened the door, there it was. Perfectly intact. Bolted into the concrete. Chains rusted but tight. And above it, hanging by thread. Dozens of photos. Like a mobile. Spinning. Each showed a moment in my life. Birthdays. First kisses. Fights. Hospital visits. But in every photo, someone had been scribbled out in black ink. And in the middle? A photo I'd never seen. Me as a child sitting on the swing with Isla. But her eyes were hollowed out. Her mouth replaced with camera shutter teeth. She was never real. That's when it hit me. Isla was an edit. A person who had existed only in the margins. A thread that unraveled wrong and folded into my story. Someone the editor had tried to delete, but she clung to me, nested inside my draft. That's why only I remembered her. I returned to the album, tore the velvet, cut the wires. Inside the spine, there was one final Polaroid. My current self, standing in a dark hallway. Behind me, the editor, inches away, hand raised, thread in her fingers. And I realized something. I was already in the process of being rewritten. This was no longer prevention. It was survival. The hallway lights went out. One by one, the swing began to creak behind me. And from inside the shadows, a voice. Not Isla's. Not the editor's. My own. You were never in the photo. Then what am I? The last version. Before what? A flash. A click. Shutter. A new Polaroid fell from the ceiling. I caught it. It showed my body curled in the fetal position inside a Polaroid camera. Being developed. The rules begin to shift. The protagonist finds an unexposed roll of film labeled Exit. And for the first time, he holds a camera, one that wasn't given, but found. The camera was waiting for me when I woke up. I hadn't fallen asleep. I'm not even sure I can anymore. But I woke up regardless, cold, damp, breathless, and there it was. A Polaroid SX-70. Pristine. Wrapped in the same black thread that had once bound the swing. One word carved into the lens housing. Return. I didn't remember carrying it downstairs. I didn't remember opening the hatch to the basement again. But when I blinked, I was already standing at the bottom. And the swings were all filled. Every seat, every version of me. One was 6 years old. Another wore my high school jacket. Another one, identical to my current self, held his own camera, aiming it directly at me. But the final one was empty. Thread draped across the seat like a spider's web. A place reserved for me. She takes the photo and you vanish, I heard Isla whisper once. But now I had the camera. What happens if I take the photo first? I raised the camera. The swing set began to shake, not violently but rhythmically, like a heartbeat pulsing through rusted chains. I aimed at the version of me wearing the high school jacket. Snap. Flash. Whir. The photo slid out. I looked down at it. Black and white. A little faded. The figure slowly developing. Then I glanced up. That version of me was gone. The swing seat he'd occupied was now hanging motionless. It worked. I tried again. Snap. Flash. The 6-year-old me blurred. Erased. Next, the one holding a mirror. Next, the one with his tongue stitched. Each time, a version disappeared. But when I aimed at the empty swing, the one meant for me, the camera wouldn't shoot. The shutter locked. The light on the viewfinder dimmed. And the basement grew colder. Behind me, I heard her footsteps. The editor was in the hallway. Not running. Just approaching. Each step sounded like a developing tray dripping. I backed away. My fingers trembled over the shutter. She raised a hand, thread coiling from her fingertips like a marionette's grip. She didn't need to touch you. She just needed to see you. That's when I understood. She doesn't take the photo. She becomes it. That's why her face was a blank photo sheet. Why she only appears in reflections. Why every time you see her, a Polaroid is already waiting somewhere nearby. I sprinted. Through the hallway. Up the stairs. Behind me, each picture frame I passed redeveloped itself. New versions of me. Distorted. Repeating. One with no eyes. One grinning too wide. One curled into a fetal position mid-erasure. I reached the attic. The swing wasn't there. But the mirror was. And in the reflection, Isla. Still alive. Still watching. You figured it out, she said, speaking only through the reflection. The camera's not a weapon. It's a lock. A lock for what? For the frame. She told me. Taking the photo doesn't erase the version. It pins it. Fixes it in place. Locks it inside the timeline. Safe but sealed. It's how I stayed, she whispered. You didn't see me in the photo because I was the photo. The attic walls began to peel. Like old wallpaper, revealing more Polaroids beneath. Each one a memory I almost recognized. Me crying in a room that didn't exist. Me cutting threads from my own hands. Me looking through a keyhole into my own life. And the final photo at the center wasn't of me at all. It was of her. The editor. As a child. Sitting on a swing. Holding a pair of scissors. The editor used to be one of us. That's what the photos were saying. She wasn't born to erase. She was erased and then left behind in the frame. Her body replaced. Her family forgotten. But the photo remained. She became the blank space. And now she edits others so she's not alone. I stare at the photo of her as a child. I slip it into the SX-70 camera. And I wait. If taking someone's picture locks them into the timeline, what happens when you take a photo of the editor? Behind me, I hear her crawling. No footsteps now, just the sound of thread tightening. I raise the camera. Her stitched face inches closer. I click the shutter. Flash. The editor has been captured, but something breaks in the process. All the past versions of the narrator begin to emerge. Not as memories, but as separate beings, each unfinished, each angry. The photo didn't fall. It stayed inside the camera. The shutter jammed, the light turned off, and for a second, just a second, everything around me went completely still. No footsteps. No creaks. No voices. Even the house held its breath. Then the walls began to scream. Not voices from outside. Voices from inside me. Every version I had erased with the camera, the 6-year-old, the teenage me, the one who had the stitches, the one with the black eyes, they all started screaming at once. Some begged. Some laughed. One just repeated, "She's in the shutter. She's in the shutter. She's in the shutter." I dropped the camera. It didn't hit the ground. It hovered, suspended in midair, like gravity had been reversed just for it. Then the Polaroid finally ejected. It wasn't a photo. It was a mirror. Thin, soft, slightly warm. And in it, the editor's face trapped. Mouth open, eyes wide, silent and still. But behind her, just barely visible, someone else. Another me. One I hadn't seen before. Older. Bleeding. Smiling. Watching. I stumbled back. The attic had changed. The walls were now covered in negative prints, all in versions of my childhood photos. Like I had never been born into light at all, only into shadow. One showed me crawling on the ceiling. Another holding Isla's severed braid. And one was just a photo of the swing. But the chain was wrapped around a spine. My body started to split. Not literally. Not physically. But chronologically. I felt thoughts that weren't mine, memories I never lived, all playing over each other. I remembered a birthday party that never happened. A funeral where I was both the mourner and the coffin. A version of me who was blind. One who had never stopped Isla. One who had helped the editor. And worst of all, one who loved her. The door burst open. Not from force, from pressure. And through it came me. Not a ghost. Not a hallucination. 7 of me. All from different frames the editor had pulled and discarded. All angry. Their mouths moved at the same time. Their voices layered like broken radios. "You locked her away. You left us unfinished. You stole our place in the frame. You took the swing seat. You were the problem." I ran. Not from fear. From instinct. The hallway stretched infinitely, covered in more of me. Some trapped in glass. Some sewn into wallpaper. Some moving inside the floor. Every reflection screamed now. Even my shadow had split. One version crawled alongside me. It whispered as I ran, "You're not the original. You're just the last." Until the next. I made it to the basement again. But now, instead of one swing, there were dozens. All spinning in slow circles, powered by no wind. One swing had my father's boots beneath it. Another had Isla's old hair ribbon, now soaked in something dark. And the last one, at the center, was still empty. But not for long. The camera hovered above it, waiting. Isla appeared beside me. Not as a child. Not as a ghost. As a photo. Two-dimensional, drifting like a paper cutout. She looked at me without blinking and said, "If you want this to end, you have to do what she did." "What's that?" "Cut your thread." I looked down at my arm. A thin black string was now visible beneath the skin. It pulsed. Moved. Like it was alive. I took the thread between 2 fingers. It burned. I heard every version of me screaming louder as I pulled. The walls cracked. Time glitched. Every light bulb burst. And behind it all, the swing creaked once, louder than thunder. And then, silence. Just one last whisper in Isla's voice. "Let the next photo decide. The narrator must choose, remain the final version and take the editor's place, or unthread completely and let the next version take over." But the swing doesn't wait. It chooses who remembers and who fades. The thread didn't come out clean. When I pulled it, it fought. It wrapped tighter around my veins, twisted through my bones, and coiled itself around something invisible. My breath came out in film strips. My heartbeat echoed like shutter clicks. And as the final length slid from my arm, the editor screamed. From inside the photo. Trapped. Trapped but not dead. She wasn't erased. She was stored. The swing began to shake. The empty one. The one that had waited through every iteration. Every reset. Chains rattled like bones. The basement light flickered, then stopped flickering. Stayed off. Only the camera glowed now. Not from within. From behind, there was something standing behind the camera. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was me, but wrong. He had no mouth, just a blank space where one should be, like someone had taped over it. His eyes were darkroom trays. His skin was glossy, and in his hand, instead of a camera, he held the photo, the one of Isla's family, the one where she wasn't in it. He extended it toward me. "Your turn," he mouthed without lips. I took the photo. It was cold, but when I turned it over, there was writing on the back now, scratched in with thread. "The first photo lies. The last one decides." And below that, a number, frame number 00001. That couldn't be right. This wasn't the beginning. This was the end. So why? A second swing dropped from the ceiling. No chains, just thread. It hovered beside mine. And then he, the blank version of me, climbed into it, sat down, smiled. A slit opened where his mouth should be. Wide, too wide. He began to rock back and forth. As he swung higher, I saw snapshots with every arc. Flashes of different realities. One where I never met Isla. One where I lived in a house that didn't exist. One where I had no face. And with each swing, his voice echoed. "Only one of us gets to stay." I felt the thread again, coiling around my fingers, tugging me forward. It wanted me to sit, to claim the final swing. But if I did, would I be the one remembered? Or the one trapped? I looked at the camera. It was pointed at us both now. Whoever it captured would remain. The other, a memory, a ghost, a frame in an album called Drafts. I climbed into the swing. My body didn't fight. It knew. It rocked forward on its own. Back, forward. The chains groaned in harmony. The blank me swung beside me. We rose, fell, rose again. And at the apex of one final swing, flash, the basement vanished. I stood in a white room, a dark room, silent, timeless. The walls were made of negatives. The ceiling was a photo reel. And on the floor, developing slowly, was a single Polaroid. I stepped closer. My fingers shook. The image developed. It showed me, alone, sitting on the swing. Isla beside me, the editor watching from the mirror. And behind us, dozens of swings, all empty. The camera clicked one last time. I heard it behind me. I turned and saw nothing. No one held it. It floated, cracked, hissing, melting. Its lens shattered. But not before it ejected one final image. A swing spinning endlessly with no one in it, and a single black thread, torn in half, drifting down into darkness. The narrator realizes that the house, the people, and even Isla might have been photographs, layers of story edits folded over one another. The truth lies beyond the frame, but to reach it, they must destroy the photo that created them. The swing kept spinning in the photo. Even after it fully developed, even as I held it in my hand, the image moved. It didn't make sense. Photos don't move. They freeze things. But this one, the swing spun faster. The thread floated slower. And behind the swing, a door appeared, painted onto the backdrop like scenery from a school play. Except, the longer I looked, the more it felt real. I reached for the door in the photo. My fingers met glossy film. But as soon as I touched it, the paper split. The photo tore silently, from corner to corner, and something opened. Not the basement, not the attic, somewhere outside. Except there was no outside anymore, just layers, peeling, and between each one, another version of the house. Each slightly different, each more wrong. I stepped forward, and the walls of the real house folded in like a photo album. No drywall, no wood. Just prints, of rooms, of events, of choices. I peeled them back one by one. 1. The kitchen where my mother cried alone. 2. The hallway where Isla first showed me the picture. 3. The closet where I first heard her breathing. Each one dissolved as I touched it, like they were never walls, just photographs I had believed in. I reached the final layer, a room I didn't recognize. White, empty. One light bulb hanging, swinging without wind. In the center, a photo album, old leather, bound with black thread. I opened it and saw only blank pages, except for one, the first. It was the picture Isla showed me when this all began, her family, but now she was in it. She stood smiling beside them, happy, whole, and I was gone. I flipped through the rest of the album. Nothing, just dust, until the very last page. And there was a photo of me, except it wasn't printed. It was developing. Now, the chemical reaction was in progress, my features soft and blurry, but forming. But behind me in the photo I saw the editor, watching from a dark hallway. Isla, sitting cross-legged, eyes empty. And on the wall, a mirror cracked exactly where my mouth would be. I turned around and realized I was in the photo. The darkroom faded. The lights turned red, and I was once again inside the frame, trapped. A figure stepped into the light. Not the editor, not Isla, me, again, but older, calm, confident. He knelt beside the photo album and whispered, "You're the last version." "Why?" "Because you chose to remember." He opened the album again. The photo of Isla's family was now gone, replaced by a single phrase, "Unexposed." He explained, "The editor was never a person. She was a process, a function. When you stop believing your memories are yours, she moves in." Then who was Isla? Whoever you needed her to be. And me, he smiled. You're the only one who knew the house wasn't real. The walls pulse, the threads collapse, and for the first time, there's no swing, just a floor, solid, real. The older version of me hands me a final photo, blank, but there's a pen beside it. "You can choose," he says. What? How it ends? Where it starts? Who remembers? I look down at the photo. I write one word on it, Isla, and everything around me begins to tear, not apart but open. The final part reveals the truth. The editor, Isla, the house. All were constructs created from grief, memory, and guilt. The narrator confronts the choice to either remember the truth or create a better lie. I wrote her name, and the photo, blank just a second ago, shivered in my hand. Then, like ink soaking into wet paper, an image began to form. Not the basement, not the swing, just Isla, sitting in a chair, hands folded in her lap, staring directly at me. Only now her eyes were my eyes, her face subtly wrong, older, like it had borrowed my features. And on the floor in front of her, the photo album, closed, thread-wrapped. A whisper floated from the walls. "She was never in the photo, because you took her place." Then another voice, deeper, layered. "You needed her, so you made her, again and again. You can end it, or frame it forever." I looked around. The house was folding again, not into nothing, but into memory. And at the center of it all was the album, the true editor, not a person, not even a ghost, but the mechanism we use to forget. I stepped toward it. The threads pulsed, each one a memory. A mom's quiet sobbing through the walls. A dad's sudden vanishing after that final knock on the door. Isla's laughter, always just a second off from mine. The first time I saw that photo and didn't notice I was missing, I knelt down, opened the cover. Inside, a final message had appeared. "You can frame the truth, or you can free her." And below that, 2 photos. 1. A complete happy family, Isla included. 2. A boy alone holding a broken swing chain. One had to burn. My hands shook. I stared at the flame beside me. 1 photo to remember, 1 to erase. If I burned the one with Isla, maybe the house would collapse. Maybe the loop would end. If I burned the boy, maybe she would be real, whole. But I wouldn't be. I picked up both, held them to the flame, waited. Then, I burned neither. Instead, I placed both into the album, closed the cover, and whispered, "Keep them both." The threads didn't tighten this time. They loosened. The house stopped flickering. The photos stopped shifting. And I felt something I hadn't in a very long time. Stillness. The editor didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply faded. Because finally, there was nothing to edit. I walk outside. Daylight, real daylight, filters through gray sky. The swing in the backyard creaks once. Isla stands beside it, smiling. Older now, more real. She doesn't speak. She just holds up a photograph. It's me, smiling too. Behind us, the old house, whole, and written in faint ink across the bottom. The story you don't remember is still yours. She tucks the photo into her jacket. And the world doesn't end. It develops.